back into it and to come over and support.
I realized you had a connection until
Pass his regards to you.
He told me that he's going. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, very good morning to you all, and thank you for this opportunity to address all of you. This morning we are indeed privileged as a government and of course the Minister for Defence, particularly to host the Honourable Minister for Defence of New Zealand, the Honourable Peeni Henare. We have been longing for this opportunity. The COVID restrictions has unfortunately separated us. We've had meetings virtually, but since yesterday, our officials and this morning for us as ministers, we have been able to meet in person, and it's always good to have the warmth of our friendship, the long enduring true relationship and friendship that we have between Fiji and New Zealand. New Zealand and Fiji defense organizations have a special bond forged over decades of people-to-people exchanges, and this visit by the Honourable Minister again has reaffirmed our shared commitment to improving regional security. We have touched very briefly on a few issues. Again, it's been a while. There has been some outstanding issues, particularly from 2016, HADR related. HADR is a key component of the discussions that we've had because we are in a vulnerable region, and of course the defense forces of both countries have a critical role to play. There are some policy issues as well. We briefly discussed about New Zealand's support to us in the development of a maritime security strategy that will support the national security strategy that is before government, and we are thankful again for that assistance, taking into consideration their expertise and of course the necessary support that comes with it as well. And most importantly, between our two forces, in terms of capability and capacity development, that is very, very critical for us, given the challenges and the developments that are happening in the region, including most lately COVID, and of course our vulnerability to climate and disaster phenomena. Thank you.
Kia ora everybody, and tēnā koe Minister, thank you very much for your introductory comments, and of course your warm welcome to myself and my delegation here. I bring with me the greetings from our Prime Minister and our government to you and the people here of Fiji, and I want to thank you for, I think, laying out quite well what our key conversation was today. In particular, the fact that our countries share a strength and an authenticity in our relationship, which can't be said everywhere. And it's important to note that coming here to Fiji first was deliberate, so that we can continue to strengthen our ties together. Just very briefly on what you've mentioned, maritime security, HADR, and the need for regenerating and working together for our forces. I want to reiterate those points and say that New Zealand is keen to work with you on these matters, to continue to make sure we have a view not just for our own respective countries, but of course to the wider Pacific. We know that we are just one part each of the wider Pacific, but collectively we are far stronger. So thank you for the opportunity, and without further ado, I think we should get into some questions.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and whatever, and we'll take 2 or 3 questions at the most, because the Minister has got other engagements as well. Please.
Ministers, and report with the Fiji Sun newspaper. Mr. Ministers, you both mentioned talks on issues. Would you be able to elaborate more on the issues of interest that you have spoken about in the meeting this morning?
We've already stated the areas that we covered. As I've stated, COVID has separated us, and there were some issues that had been discussed previously that has not been pursued because of, we have dwelled on that. Again, let me say the work on HADR, because we have a role to play in the region, particularly for our sister countries. Although we are both small countries, but the capabilities that we have can be used to the advantage, and of course bring effectiveness and efficiency into HADR work as well. For us particularly, when it comes to strategic lifts, when we deployed to Vanuatu in 2015, when we had Cyclone Pam, we had to rely on the airlift provided by New Zealand. These are some of the issues that we discussed, particularly on HADR. The maritime security strategy, this is something, we are a maritime nation, and we have a huge border, and we unfortunately have limited capability to police our EEZ. And for that, we have ship rider agreements with the US, with Australia, with the British, and we have the Wasa arrangement with the New Zealand. This is where we need each other's support in terms of policing our waters. And specifically on the mutual assistance program between the RFMF and the NZDF, most of Fijians are New Zealand trained. That includes me. So we want that to continue, and more of our people, the exchanges, we will have more of the men and women from the New Zealand Defence Force seen in our institutions here in Fiji, at Nasinu, at Officer School in Watuanga, and maybe the new facility in Black Rock, and plus other exercises and other things. These are basically some of the issues that we discussed, and maybe Minister can add to that as well.
Look, all I can add is what we're really clear on, and came from our meeting, is we desire to do this together. And Minister Seruiratu has already spoken of the challenges from COVID-19. Well, let's now, as COVID-19 slowly moves behind us, how do we come forward together, do it hand in hand, do it with a very deliberate cause, and I'm really excited that the opportunity today allows us to build on all that the ministers discussed.
Thank you. Shining here from Fiji Village for the invitation today. With regards to trafficking of smuggling of drugs, illicit drugs in the region, can you just highlight some of the work that the Ministry of Defence in New Zealand is doing in collaboration with the counterparts in Fiji?
Well, thank you for that question. Look, maritime security is really important to all of us, and the Minister's already pointed out that we are countries that are surrounded by vast areas of water. What we hope from our discussions today and moving forward is that we can send a signal to the wider Pacific, to our sister countries and our friends around the Pacific, that we're working together to make sure that maritime security is a priority for not just New Zealand or Fiji, but across the entire Pacific, as it affects all of us. So we'll continue to work together on that. And what does that look like meaningfully with respect to the way that the New Zealand Defence Force might be able to support Fiji, and Fiji might be able to support the New Zealand Defence Force?
It may be more specific in terms of police work, but that does not take away the responsibility that our navies play, and our naval components do play, and of course we provide that necessary support. I've talked about the ship rider agreement. So when naval ships from Australia, from New Zealand, from the UK comes into the country, we have not only naval personnel boarding the ships while they are in our waters. We have personnel from customs, we have personnel from Ministry of Fisheries. This is about the ship rider agreement. So we provide that necessary support as well to the Fiji Police Force. We need each other. It's a shared responsibility, I would say, And this is why these discussions and how we can provide that support becomes very, very important.
Good morning, Ministers. Maritime from Fiji One. Was there any discussion this morning regarding assistance from New Zealand government to Fiji during the leading up to the general elections in terms of safety and security and treatment?
Not specifically. We all know that we are having elections, but of course, I think that something that New Zealand has already in place about supporting. It's not only New Zealand, but all other friends and partners for Fiji, as they do provide for all other countries. But we focus more specifically on defense-related issues.
Correct. The only thing I'll add is our High Commission here works very closely to make sure that we can support the elections, and that's all we can add. Really, our conversations were predominantly on defence matters.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
From SBC News, I just wanted to ask her with relation to defense matters that's been discussed, has there been any, would I be able to get comments from both of you with regards to specific contribution in terms of trying to end the battle between Ukraine and Russia that has economic implications around the world and doesn't spare New Zealand or Fiji?
We are concerned about definitely it's going to affect all of us. We are small countries. We strongly support multilateralism. And our voice has been channeled through the United Nations, and that's our position, Fiji's position on that.
Yesterday, the Prime Minister in New Zealand announced that we would issue further support to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, financial support through the UN mechanism that the ministers already discussed, but also a very pragmatic offer of equipment, predominantly helmets, body armour for the people in Ukraine, and we're working through the logistics of sending that up to Ukraine. But what we're trying to do, though, and it's, as the ministers highlighted, is continue supporting, but looking towards, well, what does this mean and what is the impact on our people here? I think you're right. New Zealand and Fiji, it'd be remiss of me to say that it doesn't have an impact on us. I can say from New Zealand's perspective, we've got a large Ukrainian population amongst our people. We have historic ties to the Ukraine, so we'll continue to do what we can to support. And just finally, we're trying to arrange an opportunity for me to speak to the Defence Minister from the Ukraine to see how further New Zealand may be able to help.
Thank you very much, and I hope that we can free up the Minister for the rest of his engagements.
Thank you.